5 o'clock, and I call this work session meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Mr. Clark? Mrs. Lucas-Burt? Here. Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Summers? Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mayor Rowe?
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out tonight. We have 3 items on the work session agenda. First, a briefing by the city manager about SIPA. The second is a very short briefing on the General Assembly that will start tomorrow. And last is a briefing by the city clerk on boards and commissions. Dr. Patton.
Thank you, Mayor. It is indeed a pleasure, as City Manager, along with my staff, to officially congratulate our new members of City Council. We are privileged to be a part of the City of Portsmouth municipal government and look forward to serving you and continuing to be stalwart public servants to our citizens. The City of Portsmouth is a member of the Southeastern Public Service Authority.
Dr. Patton, if I could interrupt, I noticed that Luke McCoy is here, and Mr. McCoy is the governor's appointee for Portsmouth to the SIPA board. And I'm going to invite you to sit at the table so you can be part of this discussion.
Thank you.
You need to know where we're thinking if you're going to help represent us at SIPA. So if you would have a seat,
Thank you, Mr.
please.
Mayor.
Here's,
Members of council.
welcome. Thank you, Mayor. Here, Mr. McCoy, put it up a little bit. You good? Okay. The City of Portsmouth is a member of the Southeastern Public Service Authority, often referred to as SIPA. On January 24, 2018, the city's current contract with SIPA for solid waste disposal expires. There are 7 member localities who have already executed the use and support agreements, thereby extending their contract with SIPA for 15 years beginning January 25, 2018. To date, the City of Portsmouth, with City Council's approval, authorized the city manager to sign the use and support agreement contingent upon Portsmouth having a transfer station constructed and paid for by SIPA. During this evening public work session, we have 2 presentations. The first presentation is a historical overview of SIPA and the City of Portsmouth SIPA post-2018 proceedings. Deputy City Attorney and SIPA representative, Mrs. Sharon Cardell, is the presenter. The second presentation, the transfer station site process, presented by Mrs. Erin Tremere, Director of Public Utilities, and SIPA alternate representative. And there will be a review of this discussion with City Council led by the City Manager, Mrs. Cardell.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Happy New Year, everyone. As Dr. Patton stated, I'm going to present a brief history of SIPA and an update with regard to where we stand today in the post-2018 SIPA proceedings. SIPA was created in the mid-1970s by agreement of local municipalities, and its responsibilities included the implementation of a regional solid waste disposal system to include a refuse-derived fuel plant, or an RDF plant, and a power plant. In the late 70s and early 80s, 30-year contracts with 8 member communities were executed, providing that most of their waste would be delivered to SIPA, and they would pay SIPA's established fees for waste disposal services. Those 8 member localities include Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Franklin, Chesapeake, Southampton County, Isle of Wight, and Suffolk. In 1985, the regional landfill located in Suffolk, as well as transfer stations in Norfolk, Chesapeake, Franklin, and Portsmouth, became operational. You're going to hear this term transfer station quite a bit with regard to waste disposal processes and SIPA. And a transfer station is a facility where there's a receiving area where city garbage trucks go to temporarily unload the waste, and then that waste is loaded onto larger trucks and taken to its final destination, albeit a treatment facility or a landfill. Now, there was a Portsmouth transfer station in the mid-'80s, and that was located where the Harley-Davidson dealership now stands. That transfer station, however, closed in 1987 when the RDF plant was completed. It was never contemplated that that transfer station would stay open. It was contemplated when this all came about that the RDF plant would function as Portsmouth's transfer station. As we all know, there was a severe economic downturn in 2008, and that had a devastating impact on SIPA because of the debt that SIPA was in from borrowing to continue to make capital purchases, and that put the organization in a financial crisis. However, through cutbacks, financial reorganization, and the sale of the waste-to-energy facility in Portsmouth, it's now a financially healthy organization with cash reserves. That brings us to today, and today we're at a critical juncture with regard to waste disposal because SIPA's use and support agreements with the 8-member localities expire as of January 24th, 2018. With that, I'd like to talk briefly about SIPA's leadership and Portsmouth's representation on the SIPA board. SIPA has an executive staff that's led by its executive director. His name is Roland Bucky Taylor. And the SIPA board is comprised of a 16-member board of directors composed of a governor-appointed and an ex officio or locally appointed member from each locality. In addition, there is a locally appointed alternate from each community that attends board meetings as well. Most localities tend to send a team of folks to the board meetings consisting of their appointed board members and other pertinent city staff that will observe from the gallery. This slide outlines Portsmouth's representation on the SIPA board since 2012. And as you can see, in 2012, then City Attorney Mr. Tim Oaksman was the governor's appointee, and Mr. George Wilson, Senior Deputy City Attorney, was the council appointee, and I've served as the alternate in 2012. In 2013, Mr. Luke McCoy, retired city manager, became your governor's appointee, and Mr. Wilson, the city attorney then, was the city council appointee, and I continued in the capacity as the alternate. As of April 2015, Mr. McCoy has continued to serve as the governor's appointee. I believe it's a 4-year appointment. And I was your alternate, and there was no city council appointed ex officio from April until July. In July, I became your council appointed ex officio, and Ms. Erin Tremere, the director of the Department of Public Utilities, is now your alternate. And I also wanted to note that Ms. Judy Duffy was assigned to special projects as a member of the city manager's staff, and she also was very involved and attended and observed all board meetings from 2012 until her retirement last year. As I mentioned earlier, SIPA's use and support agreements with its members expires in January of 2018. And in anticipation of that, SIPA issued an RFP for waste disposal services for post-2018. And Repower was the selected vendor, and SIPA has now entered into a 15-year waste supply agreement to provide Repower with its waste. And Repower estimates charging approximately a $56.64 per ton tipping fee, and this is down from what we're currently paying, which is $125 a ton. There will be a certain amount of waste overflow that's contemplated by Repower, and that waste will be taken to the regional landfill in Suffolk. And a host agreement has been worked out with the city of Suffolk to allow for use of that landfill.
It's already been worked out?
Yes.
Has it been executed?
Yes. The question then remains, where is Portsmouth with regard to SIPA post-2018, and how did we get here? The city was directed by City Council to negotiate with SIPA to obtain a transfer station within the city limits of Portsmouth. A collaborative development agreement was created by SIPA and city staff for the construction of a transfer station at a cost of $6 million to be borne by SIPA and to be built on a site to be selected by the city. A resolution was presented to City Council in May of 2016 to authorize the city manager to execute the use and support agreement. However, that was contingent upon the city and SIPA entering into that collaborative development agreement. The matter was deferred at that time by City Council. Also, in the month of May, the remaining 7 member localities executed their use and support agreements with SIPA for post-2018 services. So every other locality will be proceeding with SIPA as of January 25th, 2018. In October of 2016, Portsmouth City Council approved a resolution affirming the city's commitment to SIPA and authorizing the execution of the use and support agreement and for the development of a transfer station by a vote of 4-3. To date, the use and support agreement has been signed by the city manager, but it has not yet been presented to the SIPA board for execution or consideration. And no site has been selected or approved by City Council for the construction of a transfer station, At this time, Ms. Tremere will go into further detail with regard to the city's research into potential transfer station sites. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor, members of council. As Dr. Patton and Ms. Cordell indicated, I'm here tonight to give a brief overview of the transfer station selection process to date. As Ms. Cordell spoke to earlier, a transfer station is a facility where municipal solid waste is temporarily staged in its course of delivery to the landfill or an waste-to-energy facility. This slide provides examples of existing transfer stations in neighboring localities. These stations are located next to city parks, schools, and residential neighborhoods, and often those working or living adjacent to these properties are unaware of the activity going on. 7 sites were evaluated for consideration of a transfer station within our city and are highlighted in red on this slide. Victory Boulevard, Willett Drive, Seagard Avenue, and Elm Avenue were eliminated from our initial list for various reasons, including, but not limited to, restricted access to the site, significant potential future development, conflict with the city's comprehensive plan currently under revision, financial investment, or environmental issues. In addition to the 4 sites shown on this slide, properties at Burtons Point Road, Portsmouth Boulevard, and Greenwood Drive were also considered as initial options. City staff met with council members individually to review all options and also toured existing SIPA transfer stations in neighboring localities. Upon conclusion of these meetings, these 3 properties were advanced as potential sites for further evaluation. The next 3 slides will expand on the advantages and challenges of each of these sites. This slide is of the old school board property, commonly known as Burtons Point. Adjacent to the property to the south is the Bain Brothers property, recently purchased by the PPIC. Combined, these properties are approximately 13.8 acres. The greatest advantage to the site is the lack of impact it would have to current operations. The city currently delivers its municipal waste to the Wheelabrator facility located just around the corner off Elm Avenue. Another advantage is the ownership of this site. In addition, the site would not require zoning changes. However, there are significant financial obligations and investments that the city would be responsible for should this site be selected. The EPA is currently using this site for the MetroCast facility located to the north as a depository for the dredging material from the Elizabeth River. Under the agreement with EPA and DEQ, upon development of this property, the city would have to reimburse their agency for their portion of the cleanup cost. The cost for the school site is $200,000, and the cost for the Bain Brothers property is estimated at $250,000. These costs would be due upon the sale of the property or by January 15, 2029, whichever occurs first. There are also significant infrastructure improvements that would need to be made, including a complete reconstruction of Burtons Point Road. The preliminary engineering report was recently provided to the city and estimates these construction costs anywhere from $2 to $2.5 million. This aerial shows 1801 Portsmouth Boulevard. This site in total is approximately 27.8 acres and is conveniently located at the intersection of Portsmouth Boulevard and Frederick Boulevard. The site has easy access to I-264 interstate and require no off-site improvements to roadway or utility infrastructure. In addition to these advantages, the city owns this property. The portion of the site under consideration for construction of the transfer station is shown in red on this slide and is adjacent to existing industrial property. Construction on this site would require the demolition of the existing structures, including the old cafeteria building and possibly portions of the dormitory building. While demolition of these buildings are part of a larger master plan for this property, locating the transfer station at this property would require funding of the demolition earlier than anticipated. Estimated cost for demolition of these buildings is approximately $375,000. In addition, this property would need to be rezoned. Our last site for consideration is 4690 Greenwood Drive and is located immediately adjacent to the I-264 interchange. This location provides optimal convenience for the operations of waste management as it is readily accessible to both in-town and Churchland areas of the city. In addition, the property is currently zoned for industrial use, and furthermore, no off-site infrastructure improvements are needed. This concludes my brief overview of the transfer site complex.
Dr. Whitaker, I think there's one more site that might be up for consideration, and let's have you explain that. This is a product of a reflective drive that you took to Northern Virginia before Christmas to visit relatives. And I get this call from Dr. Patton that says, I have an idea. And I've asked Dr. Patton to share that idea with council tonight. And so it becomes an option that's not part of this presentation in the PowerPoint.
Right,
Dr.
it is
Patton.
not. Okay, Mayor, members of City Council, I think what you have heard today or this evening gives you the full gamut of what has been explored of possibilities by our team over the past 8 months. With that, we have continued to give thought of exactly what direction should we go. We did host a public open house sessions, which gave us an opportunity to have input from the public based on, of all the sites, which we narrowed it down to 3, which site, if we looked at all of the particulars of which were shared in this presentation, would be most cost-effective, provided easy access, of which the things I've shared with you before would have been the Greenwood site. However, across the country, one of the opposing factors to transfer stations is a idea of, not an idea, but a feeling of NIMBY. And citizens across the region, across the city, even in Portsmouth, that NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. Nobody wants the transfer station to be in proximity. So in thinking of that, I know that the contract that we currently have with SIPA, they manage all of the transfer stations that are in this region. Every transfer station right today that's in any of the 7 other jurisdictions that are part are managed by SIPA. So my thought was, what if City Council would allow the city manager and her team to have a conversation with SIPA in regard to, you right now manage, I'm going to say 11 transfer stations. Of all the cities, we're the smallest city, landlocked, 29 square miles, and the site has to be 5+ acres. 5, but we needed a plus. And there are not many 5+ acres that we, the city, owned or have access to. But if the City Council would consider, I, along with our representatives and our representative who's here as the governor's appointee, have a discussion with SIPA in regard to their providing opportunities for us to become a part of one of their existing transfer stations, of which they would actually do the contractual for this to happen because they are an authority, and consideration be given to Willabretta that is in our city, and our trucks are already going through the Craddock neighborhood and providing the waste disposal for our city currently. So I did, in just a brief thought, because Bucky Taylor and I have worked together for 32 years. He was a recreator and I was a recreator. So I called and just bounced it off of him, and he said to me, Doc, I think that's something that your team, your council can discuss, decide how you would like to proceed, for us to proceed, and then you come to us with what it is that your ideas or proposals for such. So that's where I am in sharing the thoughts
And
that
if
I
I
have.
may translate what I hear, is that council would authorize you to start discussions with Bucky Taylor in his capacity as the Executive Director of SIPA,
Yes.
in which SIPA would negotiate with Willabretta to be our possible transfer station going forward. Is that correct?
That could be.
And I understand that, Luke, you've had a similar discussion with Bucky?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor and I have had several conversations along this line. The city, the authority accepted proposals. The new contract with Repower can only accept 350,000 tons of refuse from the 8 member communities. That would be transported to Bainbridge Boulevard and the new plant of Repower. There is an additional need to dispose of 375,000 tons of what SIPA has classified as what we classify as bulk material or construction material. They have gone out and accepted proposals from 4 additional companies, and they are being evaluated at the present time with 2 of the proposers. And along those lines, the conversation that Mr. Taylor and I had, and along with the same lines that Dr. Patton has had with Mr. Taylor, is that we would continue to use the tipping floor of the RDF plant as our transfer station, which would negate the necessity of us having to find a location for a transfer station. We would continue to operate the same way we have since the inception in 1985. So to me, for SIPA and for the city of Portsmouth, it's a win-win situation if we can go forward. And a lot of that depends on what the future of Willabretta has classified and deemed themselves to be.
Okay. Dr. Whitaker?
Yes. The plan that you're proposing, Dr. Patton, that's where we were prior to this discussion involving SIPA. We had already stated that Willabretta should be the organization that we continue to use. I don't see what you're presenting is any different. The only thing that you've added is, which I don't understand why we would be doing that, is now you're having SIPA to negotiate for us, Willabretta, when we can negotiate with Willabretta directly. It doesn't, I don't see any value added. Also, if you go to page 8 of the presentation, the first presentation.
Can you get that back up, please?
Yes, sir, I'm bring it back.
Because we had a proposal from Willabretta, which I don't understand, now it seems to be acceptable when before that information was withheld from council. And I think that if we have a relationship where we can negotiate, and there was an RFP that was put out, which they responded to on page 8, I believe it's the first was the first presentation.
Sharon's
Right,
presentation.
Ms. Cordell.
If you would,
Just give me 1 second.
and Dr. Whitaker, you said page 8?
Right, it's page 8.
All right. We're there?
Yeah, page 8, bullet point number 3. This is why I would question using SIPSA, and also why I would think the citizens would want to be concerned, because post-2018, SIPSA's tipping fee is going to be $56.64 a ton. Right now, by dealing with SIPSA and negotiating on our behalf, we're paying $125 a ton, which I believe council, I don't know if the present newly elected members received the letter that we're about to get a refund from SIPSA. Is that correct?
A credit.
Well, credit refund because of the overcharge that they have done. And I don't have confidence in SIPSA negotiating for us when we can negotiate directly with them. And I know that the tipping fee that Willabrator presented was somewhere, I thought, around in the $49. So I'm not confident, and I don't see why we would want SIPSA negotiating for us when we already can negotiate directly with Willabrator. And we had citizens that came before council that told us that we should go with Willabrator. So what is the value added of bringing SIPSA in as a third party?
Dr. Whitaker and Mayor and members of City Council, the procurement process that took place when we went out for waste disposal was denied. And with that denial, the particulars of what was in the proposal, who saw it, and all of that, it was denied. So I can't speak to that piece. However, as a city, we're a part of an authority. We're under contract with SIPSA as the authority that provides our waste disposal at this time. With us being a part of the authority, the oversight of the Willabrator site is under the management of the authority of which we are part, which is SIPSA. So while the city is not asking, while I am not asking the council for permission to go outside of a contract that we are in until January 24th, 2018, I am asking the authority of which we are a part and contracted under to be allowed to start a discussion to see if, in fact, through their contract, what is in our city and we're already using is a possibility.
if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it's done within the context of a regional solution.
Yes.
And second, the procurement issue becomes a SIPSA issue, not a city issue.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Getting back to the Wheelabrator thing, I think one of the factors that determined us going with SIPSA was a short-term agreement versus a long-term agreement with assurance that SIPSA is going to be around. And also, we were part of a regional effort rather than trying to go it alone. We don't have, our volume doesn't give us a lot of leverage, number one. But having a long-term agreement, I think, is protection for our citizens, actually. One question I do have, since SIPSA had agreed to build a transfer station, I think, at a cost of $6 million.
It was $6 million.
Obviously, that would represent a savings to them as well. So what, I think that should be part of the
Discussion.
negotiation,
Yes, sir.
probably to be reflected in the tipping fee. Just food for thought.
That's a very good point. And the issue before us tonight is to come to a consensus to give the city manager guidance to start the discussions with the executive director of SIPA to have SIPA negotiate with Wheelabrator, that Wheelabrator becomes our transfer station, and that we don't take the $6 million off the table, that if for some reason in the future Wheelabrator goes away, they're still obligated to either build the station at their cost or provide us another one. But does everybody understand the consensus that we're trying to work to? Okay. You spoke. Does anybody else, I'm going to get back to you. I want to make sure that all of our colleagues have a chance to speak on this matter before we, okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Once again, I don't see the benefit of why we are seeking for SIPA to negotiate on our behalf. Also, Ms. Attorney Cordell, in your meetings, the $6 million, that's allocated for a facility. I thought that was for a new facility in Portsmouth.
Right, the $6 million was contemplated as being used to build a transfer station in the city of Portsmouth.
Right. That's not to decrease tipping fees with Wheelabrator.
We hadn't addressed that in our discussions. Our discussions, as we were previously directed by council, were to speak with SIPA with regard to construction of a transfer station within the city limits of Portsmouth.
Okay.
So we haven't discussed anything other than that with regard to those monies.
Well, my question to council then is, how would it hurt council for this to go back out on an RFP to see what rate we would get by negotiating directly with the vendor? We don't have anything to lose. We have all the game. We know what SIPA's price is. We've seen some previous prices. Why would we allow for an entity to negotiate on our behalf as a third party when we can negotiate directly? And as far as regionalism is concerned, I don't think we should ever put regionalism over localism. That is, we have to look out for the interests of our city. And if the deal with the region doesn't help our city, then it's not a good deal for Portsmouth. And so the whole regionalism issue, that doesn't give us any leverage, because we already know that there was a price presented to us for $49. That didn't involve regional participation. And I think it's more costly to us. Anybody knows when you involve a third party that increases costs. And so I would think it would be in our best interest. We have nothing to lose to put the RFP back out on the table and see what comes back.
I appreciate your point, and let's make sure that we hear other points of view. Ms.
Thank you,
Simmons.
sir. I want to take us back to the fact that a majority of this council voted in favor of staying with the Regional Waste Authority. For me, the point was for the citizens of Portsmouth to be part of the larger authority that would look after us, whether Wheelabrator or RFD or WePower or any of those companies may come and go. We have the umbrella authority who will make the best deal for all of this tonnage of trash. Little old Portsmouth, with our little amount of trash, can't go out and get the best deal. We just don't have enough to make a difference for anybody. Just like the position we're in now. SIPA doesn't care if we're there or not. We don't have enough to make a difference. But if we can be part with them, if the company that owns Wheelabrator decides to shut them down 5 years from now, then, as you say, it would be up to SIPA to locate another transfer station. Maybe they take our trash to Virginia Beach. Maybe they build something in Portsmouth. But we've got that. You know, I can sleep at night knowing that 10 years down the road, we're still okay. No matter what Wheelabrator does, SIPA is going to take care of us. And that's why I voted for SIPA 2 months ago.
All right.
But SIPA hasn't taken care of us. That's why I asked her to put the screen back up there. We have paid more to them than we should have. That's why they're giving us a credit or refund. and they have not taken care of our interests. And for us to allow them to do that, knowing the information that we have, I think that that's just absurd.
Thank you for your point. Mr. McCoy.
I go back a long ways with SIPSA. SIPSA made some good choices and some bad choices. In the last 5 years, 7 years, they've made some of the best choices that they could have. And because of that, we are a product of being a winner of a larger entity. Dr. Whitaker, the advantage, one of the biggest advantages, and I've not been here, as you know, through a lot of your conversations, but the biggest advantage that we have belonging to SIPSA is that there's an alternative. If something happens to Wheelabrator or if something happens to Repower, we have a place to go to. If we go out on our own, and as long as we are a part of SIPSA, we cannot go out on our own and negotiate a separate contract with Wheelabrator until our contract with with SIPSA runs out January the 18th of 2017, 18.
But that's not entirely true, because
It is true, Dr. Whitaker.
no, I'm saying if we were to go out on the market, you say if Wheelabrator, something were to happen where we couldn't use Wheelabrator, we could also use possibly private contractors, or you could also just put an RFP out. So they're not the only game in town. And I think for us to keep referring to us as Little Portsmouth as if we have no bargaining strength, it has already shown that we do, because we receive the lower tipping fee.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
let's
saying
not,
that you don't have some valid points, but
Okay.
my experience.
Mr. McCoy.
Yes, sir.
Let's find out. I think everybody understands the issues and the points. You made your point very well. Let's try to get a sense of council on this question of giving the city manager direction to start the negotiations with the executive director for SIPSA to pursue Wheelabrator as an option for our tipping station. And could I see a show of hands of those members of council who are in favor of that concept, please?
1, 2, 3, 4,
Oppose?
6.
Okay. Well, I think we,
Yeah, so I think Dr. Whitaker
Dr. Pat, you have your direction.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay. This is a good discussion. Please keep us posted.
I shall.
Can I just ask just one question, Doctor? If Wheelabrator didn't make sense back when the proposal was presented, then how does it make sense now?
I take that as a rhetorical question.
No, I'm
and
asking that to Dr. Patton.
Well,
And
I hear you.
she
but
has a right to speak in a council meeting.
Dr. Whitaker, I understand that, but council has given the direction to.
Right, but that doesn't mean I can't ask a question, and that doesn't mean she doesn't have a right to speak. And so
I think that your question would take some research in the context of what she's been tasked to do.
No, I just asked if it wasn't right back then, what makes it right now? That's what I'm asking
We're
of
good.
you.
We'll leave your question right there.
Well, no, I've asked the manager a question. She has a right to answer. Under our rules and procedure, the manager has a right to speak. If she has a right to speak, that implies I have a right to ask. And so,
Dr. Patton, do you have anything to say on this
I think
subject?
I thought that I had answered that question. I'll repeat what I said. The City of Portsmouth is under contract with the Southeastern Public Service Authority. With us being under contract with this authority through January 25th, 2018, the City of Portsmouth and the Wheelabrator issue is a part of SIPSA's transfer stations, the 11 which they manage. I can't speak to the procurement or you've mentioned a $46. I have none of that information because, as I indicated, the RFP that went out was denied, so I cannot speak to any of that. But in the process of following proper process, we are a part of SIPSA. SIPA is under contract, the city is under contract until that time, and it's proper to us as a part of it to go forward and ask the authority on our behalf to find or work with us with a possibility of Wheelabrator being our transfer station.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is the briefing on the General Assembly session that
Yes.
starts tomorrow. And this is a brief, thank you, Mr. McCoy. You want to introduce Sharon?
Oh, yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mrs. Neal, who is our legislative manager, who came back today for this presentation, will start tomorrow in Richmond. The sessions and all of the processes start tomorrow. She came back in order to review, particularly for our new members of council, our legislative package that is going forward. And she will speak to 2 items that will come up tonight. And
She
remember,
won't.
One item.
One item.
Thank you.
One item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As was said, tomorrow begins the short 46-day General Assembly session, and I am here this evening just to share with you the 2017 legislative package that was approved by Council Resolution on October 25th, 2016. Excuse me. The first 2 initiatives are proposals to enhance the Commonwealth's and the Virginia Port Authority's fiduciary responsibilities to their fiscally stressed host cities. The 1999 JLOC study concluded, and I quote, "The host cities suffer a substantial economic loss as a result of lost revenues and infrastructure costs." End quote. In 2000, the results of this study created a new formula that's never been funded. This request is made to support either a revision of the current pilot fee formula, bringing it more in line with today's cost, or for full funding of the formula passed in 2000. Legislative Services has been a little bit late in getting out bill numbers, and so now we're being inundated with them. So I do have bill numbers for these items now. If you want them, I can share them with you.
Send them to us.
Certainly. The second initiative is the Economic Incentives Grant, which would provide incentives to attract port-related businesses to the port's host cities and support road projects directly related to port activities. Moving on. The third initiative is to amend Virginia Code Section 37.2-505 relating to the behavioral health care services or community service boards. This change would allow a CSB or a behavioral health care services department having the lead responsibility at a regional jail the ability to seek assistance as needed for services at that regional jail from the other members of the CSBs or CSBs associated or affiliated with that jail. The fifth initiative is to amend Virginia Code Section 19.2-169.6, and this will aid in expediting the process of assisting individuals in need of emergency psychiatric treatment placed in a hospital bed. As the code currently stands, it prevents a person, whether in jail or not, who is under an outpatient restoration order from being placed in a psychiatric hospital on an emergency basis by striking the reference of Code Section 19.2-169.2, which is included in this particular chapter that refers to restoration orders. An impediment will be removed, providing an easier transition when individuals present with conditions that warrant their being hospitalized on an emergency basis.
And this would solve the Creed son situation?
It wouldn't solve it, but
It would address it.
Yes, yes. And then our next initiative is a request to amend Virginia Code Section 15.2-2303.R.E. little I. This change would reduce the floor area ratio, or FAR, in this section of the code from a FAR of 3.0 to a FAR of 2.0. Modifying the FAR will allow small to medium-sized urban communities such as Portsmouth that have similar but smaller development demands when compared to larger urban communities like in Northern Virginia. The ability to meet the exemption criteria for areas in which small area comprehensive plans is adopted with mixed-use developments which are served by mass transit. With this change, small to mid-sized communities could potentially meet the intent of the exemption in terms of mixed-use, revitalization, and transit. However, as the FAR currently stands, it is too high for our local markets. This next initiative came out of our legislative agenda for 2016. We went forward with an issue dealing with disclosure of historic properties that are not covered by home associations. That particular bill went to the Virginia Housing Commission. We had some meetings on that. It went into a small committee. What came out of it, long and short of it, is that there's going to be some legislation introduced that's going to add some language to the code. It's sort of like a buyer beware. We didn't get everything we wanted. You know, we wanted them to actually put a little check marks on your real estate contract saying that you have been informed that you're in a historic district. But we learned through the whole process that historic districts are not the same throughout the Commonwealth. So it turned into a big mess. So we'll get a little bit of language out of it, which we will support. The final one is the charter change for the dissolution of the civil service. And this request was to eliminate the section of the city's charter relating to the Civil Service Commission, dissolving that, and you will have further discussion on that matter this evening during your regular council meeting. We always include a few regional policy issues. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just some of the ones that we highlighted in our package. Support of the summer regional enrichment program. And it's for financial support from the General Assembly to support a regional summer enrichment program that provides employment opportunities to youth in Hampton Roads. The next one would be a support for a state resiliency officer dealing with flooding and sea level rise in Virginia. The next one would be preservation of the current historic tax credits program, and there is a bill right now that's reducing the amount of credits that you can get. So we're in a meeting earlier this morning with the liaisons in Virginia Municipal League and VACO. That was one of the bills that they pointed out that we're going to be working on, and especially with Virginia First Cities to try to get that restored. The next one, the retention of local control over 5G broadband. There's the move afoot by the industry. Oh, and expansion of Airbnb. Both of these are taking away local control. The 5G broadband rollout, what they actually want to do is to have the ability to place these new 5Gs wherever they want to in your city without your permission, long and short. And nobody really knows what these new transmitters are actually going to look like. So they can put them on a pole, they can put them wherever, and so that's been an issue for local governments that we're still going to be fighting in this current General Assembly session. I'm told there's about 4 or 5 bills that's going to be coming out for this one. Airbnb, of course, you've heard a lot about that over the years, where people are able to rent out any space in their home, their business, or wherever without paying taxes to the city. And the city has no control over where they're located. There's zoning issues. There's other issues that's included with this particular one. And just a side note, there's also a bill that allows people to camp in their yards for like 6 months at a time without local. But anyway. Or allow other people to camp in their yards. So that's another one that we're going to be working on. We have the constitutional amendment abolishing the forfeiture of voting rights. There's several bills in for that right now, so we'll be supporting that. The Let's Open Doors movement is a movement that's been going forward for some time, which is for allowing a certain not a bracelet, but it's a way that people who are handicapped can access doors a lot simpler than the doorknob. So we're supporting any legislation that comes out on that one, and we're opposing any efforts to publish names and salaries of public employees. And that was a bill that came out last year that may come out again this year. And because of all of the hacking and privacy issues that goes along with that, we would oppose any legislation that would allow for that. And that is the short and long of what we have right now.
This is-
You do have a calendar.
Yes, the calendar that we accessed from her past, we're dealing with all of the things leading up to January 11th, which is tomorrow. So, Mrs. Neal, would you just go over for council some of the upcoming dates? Tomorrow starts a 40-day session, the VML day, and those things for council.
Okay. I can give you generalities. I didn't.
That's all I need, is your
Okay.
generality.
Okay, thank you. Tomorrow is first day of session. It's the short session, and it's the 46-day session, and it's the budget session. That's where they go in and they tweak the budget from last year, from the biennium budget. Sometime, I want to say it's probably around the first week of February will be crossover. And for those of you who may not understand that term, when crossover comes about is when all of the bills from one body crosses over to that survived crosses over to the other side, and it goes through the same legislative process. VML Day, I believe, is January 25th.
It is.
Yes, and that's when most of your local government officials will come up to, it's your legislative day on the Hill. And I think that's kind of it.
Are most of us going to that?
Okay, would everybody that's going to VML Day raise their hand? It's not too,
I guess that's my
that's a good
problem.
turnout.
Considering having.
Okay. And if you didn't raise your hand, if you can go, I really urge you to go, because this is important for our delegation, but the whole General Assembly to hear our voice.
Are we planning anything to do with our delegation as a council?
Not a dinner per se. We're thinking about maybe a breakfast in the future, but not a dinner. In the past, we've had dinners, but we ended up with people who would only come up for the dinner, not for the day.
Is there anything, maybe it's a bad question to ask you. Is there any other thing other than VMI Day that we need to be there for? Do you think that we need to have a presence in a particular date, time, or any?
As the General Assembly progresses, I will be sure to have Dr. Patton let you guys know, because things come up all the time. And one thing I've learned from the over 20 years that I've been dealing with the General Assembly is that give it a minute, anything's liable to change. So as soon as I know, I'll be sure to let you guys know. Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, Ms. Neal, where are you on the schedule that council discussed with you during the legislative discussion pertaining to a timeline that you were going to put together showing when we should have certain discussions and when certain public hearings should be taking place, so that we don't get to, October, and then we raise an issue and you say, well, we needed to have a public hearing 3 months ago. I think that's something that would be very beneficial, so that if there are issues that council wants to raise, we will already have that schedule in place to have any type of public hearing or discussions that need. Where are we on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Whitaker, yes, I remember that conversation that we had, and it was my plan to start working on that right at the end of session and have something for you probably by April. April is when this reconvene session, when they go back. So we'll still have plenty of time to roll that out.
That won't put us at any
No.
public hearing time
No.
period disadvantage?
No, sir, it shan't.
And also, on our agenda for this evening, there's an item 17-29 pertaining to the casino gambling issue. I thought that the previous council had already included that in the legislative package.
No.
Well, I thought it was a 4, well, I know I was against it, but I thought it was a 4-3 vote.
It wasn't in this package.
It wasn't in this package. We have supported it in the past,
Right,
but
okay.
we didn't have it in this package.
Okay.
Dr. Patton.
One of the things I was wanted to say to council is that from, well, tomorrow starts the session, but even starting yesterday, Mrs. Neal will send not only to city staff, but yesterday probably about 30 bills went out to the school board so that the school board's team can begin to look at what these bills are and what the response will be. And Mrs. Neal will say both to myself, city manager, and the city attorney and department heads, where there are issues that she needs representatives and someone to speak. She gives us enough time that we can get the people there to be a part of whatever the committee meeting or whatever she needs somebody to speak on. So that's already, we got a host of it last night, but it'll keep coming. And
Yeah.
we'll
Actually,
share.
there's probably been a couple of thousand bills already dropped into the legislative system, and I've been going through those, and I've pulled out about 162 at this point that I've funneled out to the departments and dispersed, right? And there's a whole bunch more I need to go through the next couple of nights to get them out there, so yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is a briefing on boards and commissions, and our city clerk will do that. She's
Multitasking right now.
And this is good that we're having this discussion because Vice Mayor Sherry will tell everyone tonight we have vacancies on boards and commissions, and I think you have a plea that you're going to make at the end of the regular session. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Mayor, members of City Council, this evening I will be providing you with an overview of your boards and commissions and its process, especially for our 2 new members. Currently, City Council has 30 active boards for which you make appointments. 22 are local, 8 are regional. City Council appoints volunteers to participate on boards, commissions, authorities, committees, and as vacancies come about. Volunteers may be citizens or property owners in Portsmouth or persons who own businesses but live elsewhere. City Council looks for applicants who are civic-minded, interested in Portsmouth and wants to make a difference here, innovative and creative thinkers, and open to new ways of doing business. City Council expects in return regular attendance to your meetings, recruitment assistance, and communications on activities from the board. When considering appointments, City Council weighs the balance of gender and race ratio, professional and specialty needs of the board, residency, and occupational requirements. When I'm asked by persons who want to volunteer for boards, I refer them to our Boards and Commissions Manual. And the things I say to them is make sure you look at the date and time of the meetings. If you can't attend the meeting on the designated day and time, you may not want to sign up for that particular board. You will immediately begin with attendance problems. After 3 absences, you will be sent a letter from the mayor inquiring about your intentions. Another thing, if you're not sure if you're interested, and we have a lot of those type of inquiries, we encourage them to attend a meeting of the board, and most of the boards of City Council are open to the public, so you don't have to pre-state that you want to attend. Another thing for citizens to look at are our regional boards. Those boards are the Southampton Roads Disability Services Board, Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia, and the Tidewater Community College Board. We have available on the city's webpage the application, the manual, and a vacancy listing for the year, and it has just recently been updated. Members of City Council, you have been provided a copy of the application, and later on when you discuss your boards and commissions, the information from that application is provided in a condensed version for you for each of the boards and the applicants. The applications are kept on file for 2 years in the name bank, and applications can be submitted by hard copy to the city clerk's office, scanned and emailed, or our preferred method is completion and submission online to the clerk's office. The terms of the various boards span between 3, 4, or 5 years. City Council allows volunteers to serve for 2 complete terms, and additionally, if they're filling an unexpired term. All volunteers are told ahead of time that reappointment is not guaranteed. With several of our boards to include Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission, the Planning Commission, and the EDA, City Council generally conducts interviews, but it's not technically an interview, it's more of a chat session, just to make sure everybody is on the same page. City Council has instituted a term limit of 2 terms per board unless you are filling an unexpired term. And again, I repeat, no reappointment is guaranteed. Depending on the board, such as PRHA and some of the others that I've listed, appointees must take an oath prior to serving. If that oath is not taken, you invalidate your seat on that board. And some boards require by state to submit a real estate disclosure statement. The purpose of this is to ensure that when dealing with land use and the sale of properties, that you have disclosed your potential interests and benefit of that event. Upon appointment from the City Council, the applicant will receive a letter from me indicating their term, their staff liaison, and their contact information. But also, once they have completed their terms, they receive a letter from the mayor and a certificate for their service. If there are any other questions, I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Good. We invite everybody that's interested to apply.
Yes.
Are there any council liaison reports that we need to consider tonight?
Not liaison report, I just want to add on to what we're
Please.
saying. For the new council members, you have a copy of the current vacancies Mr. Moody and I have met, and particularly for the new members, our plan was to go over this last night and then act on it tonight, so you haven't had a chance to look at it. So we'll ask that you take this and take a look at it. If you have any questions or comments about it, let myself and Mr. Moody know, and so we can make these appointments at the next meeting. For the new members, if you look at the sheet, the dots is those we're either proposing for appointment or for interview under the REC section. You see what I'm talking about? And the rest of us.
Hold on a minute. Dr. Whitaker didn't have a
Oh, you have it?
That's all.
Everybody cool?
So if you have any questions about it, please give one of us a call. We haven't made any appointments in a while, so we'd like to get something done at our next meeting. Of course, I'll make a plea tonight and let the public know what vacancies we have at this moment. I was thinking out loud, thinking while you were talking. The ones we interview for, can we, on this form, if my colleagues have no objections, put those together? I mean, not one after the other. So, because, we typically interview, and sometimes we wind up finding out somebody we're interviewing for planning is better off for EDA. If we have all those together, list those, I think it was 4 you listed on this sheet together. Everybody okay with that? That way we won't have to bounce around. We typically
I just added one to Mr. Moody
okay.
for an interview.
Okay.
Okay, see, that's why we do this. That was it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from you in that? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning last night, those items that we were going to discuss at the work session last night, the city manager will put those on the agenda for the 23rd after we have our joint meeting with the school board. All right, that concludes our business for the work session. We do have a need for a closed session, 2 legal items, and there is a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
just before we go into close, there was something that I failed to mention when, I think it's Ms. Tremere, is that her name? And Ms.
Through Mayor.
In your statement that you read, you
Could you
mentioned,
come to the lectern? please?
I just want to make sure that correct information goes out. You mentioned that when the transfer stations were being considered, that you met with each council member individually, or Dr. Patton?
It was collaborative, it was members of staff, and Dr. Patton met with
Okay.
most of city council members.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you qualified that, because you said that you met with city council, and I know I wasn't in any type of meeting. Like, I just want to make sure that's clear. All right.
Thank you. We do have a motion, and it's
Hot off the press.
hot off the- Thanks.
Would you like me to start reading off?
Yes, ma'am, I would.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation. Where such consultation in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the city, specifically regarding Virginia International Gateway Incorporated versus City of Portsmouth, Portsmouth Circuit Case Number CL 16001427-00, and Virginia International Gateway versus City of Portsmouth in Portsmouth Circuit Court Case Number CL 15002813-00, and pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7, for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the city, specifically regarding Meeks versus City of Portsmouth, Virginia et al., Portsmouth Circuit Court Case Number CL 16001694-00, and Moody versus City of Portsmouth, Virginia et al., Portsmouth Circuit Court Case Number CL 16001291-00.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
You've heard the motion to go into closed session for these two legal matters, and I am sure that Councilman Moody will probably excuse himself on the second discussion.
You know, you're right,
Okay.
Mayor, but in doing that, there are other parties involved, Councilman Cherry and Councilman Whitaker, and I'll leave the room, but I do object. I do feel that they should also leave the room.
We'll have a discussion with council.
And if they stay, I would like Mr. Ashby to give me the legal basis for that, why I would be treated differently.
Just point.
Hold on.
Go on.
You had his...
Yeah, I was going to say, if that's the case, then everybody take me to leave the room, because you're suing the city of Portsmouth and us as individuals. So that would mean the city manager, city attorney, and everybody in here have to leave the room. So we are being sued. We're not suing. So that's why we have to leave. We can't. We have to be in the room to talk about how we're going to defend ourselves.
Well, that's not Mr. Ashby. Once again, I object. I'll leave the room, but I do want Mr. Ashby to give me the legal basis
All
at
right.
the appropriate time.
Hold on. I'm going to recognize you, Dr. Whitaker.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is a issue of litigation. It's not for the plaintiff to direct the city attorney. That would be for counsel to direct the city attorney. So I just want to make sure we don't start that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready for the question? The question is to go into closed session. All in favor, say aye. You want to call the roll?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Will you call the roll, please?
Sure,
And
sir.
either vote aye or nay.
Mr. Cherry?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Aye.
Mr. Moody is abstaining.
No, I'll vote no, because I think it probably should be discussed in public session.
Okay.
So I'll vote no.
Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Ruff?
Aye.
We are in closed session.
And we'll do it in the sequence of the motion, and I would ask all of council to remain for that first part.